Ladies and gentlemen, permit me, please, to claim your attention for a moment. In the words of Winston Churchill during the Second World War, every bond between man and man was to perish. Crimes were committed by the Germans under the Hitlerite domination to which they allowed themselves to be subjected, which find no equal in scale and wickedness with any that have darkened the human record. The wholesale massacre by systematized processes of 6 or 7 million men, women, and children in the German execution camps exceeds in horror the rough and ready butcheries of Genghis Khan, and on his scale reduces them to pygmy proportions. Deliberate extermination of whole populations was contemplated and pursued by both Germany and Russia in the Eastern War. The hideous process of bombarding open cities from the air, once started by the Germans, was repaid 20-fold by the ever-mounting power of the Allies, and found its culmination in the use of the atomic bombs which obliterated Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It was a simple and noble policy to keep Germany disarmed after the struggle of the First World War, while the victors remained sufficiently armed in vigilance. But errors were soon made. America's failure to enter the League of Nations, the weakness and lack of resolution of Western democracies to confront the growing strength of the fascist dictators in Germany, Italy, and Japan, and the economic turmoil that allowed these events to spark and build. Upon reflection, it is all too easy to see how this tragedy could have been avoided, but those in power at the time failed all too well to see the gathering storm that confronted them. The Treaty of Versailles, Seeds of Resentment. The origins of the Second World War can be found within the confines of the Palace of Versailles. Germany's surrender in the First World War was a shock to both the international community and its people. Militarily, Germany had been successful on the Eastern Front. Troops were deep within France, and Germany itself was untouched. Yet, on November 11, 1918, at 11 a.m., the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, a ceasefire came into effect. An armistice had been signed, and the war to end all wars had come to an end. The proud peoples of Germany had been defeated. The Allies were victorious. After 4 years of suffering and untold casualties, they wanted Germany to pay to ensure such a horror would never happen again. An international institution was established in the hope of bringing about a new world of collective security, the League of Nations. In early 1919, the Germans were summoned to Versailles, not to negotiate, but to hear the terms they would have to implement. David Lloyd George of Great Britain, Woodrow Wilson of America, Georges Clemenceau of France, and Orlando of Italy all attended with the aim of weakening Germany. World War I had radically altered the European map with the defeat of the Central Powers, Austria-Hungary, Germany, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire. The German state that emerged experienced profound change and severe territorial losses. A portion of its eastern land was lost, creating a new Polish state and establishing a Polish corridor between Germany and East Prussia, giving Poland access to the sea. The port city of Danzig, the largest on the coast, was given to the League of Nations. Memel in the Baltic was handed to Lithuania. Alsace-Lorraine went to France. The mineral-rich Saarland was administered by the League for 15 years. The Rhineland became a demilitarized zone, providing France additional security. German colonies in Africa were distributed to Britain and France. Those in the South Pacific went to Japan. Military clauses crippled Germany further. The army could number no more than 100,000 troops, no air force, tanks, or heavy artillery. The navy limited to 6 warships with no U-boats or submarines. Insult was added to injury with a war guilt clause, forcing Germany to accept full responsibility for the war, allowing the Allies to demand reparations. France and Britain had begun the war as creditor states, but ended as debtors, and they wanted repayment. The sums demanded were many times more than Germany could pay, placing a severe burden on its economy that fueled instability and hyperinflation. John Maynard Keynes, the primary representative of the British Treasury, warned, "I believe that the campaign for securing out of Germany the general costs of the war was one of the serious acts of political inwisdom for which statesmen have been responsible." The German people felt bitterly betrayed by their high command and unjustly treated by the international system, views that would materialize throughout the 1920s and 1930s. After the Wall Street crash of 1929 and the Great Depression, the world plunged into economic turmoil. Germany was hit hardest. American banks withdrew loans, the economy collapsed overnight. Banks struggled with cash shortages. In 1931, runs on German and Austrian banks led to closures. Businesses shuttered at an alarming rate. By 1933, unemployment reached 6 million. Many were homeless. Thousands of children died from malnutrition. Lacking government resolve, the desperate turned to alternative leaders. One man garnered attention with rousing speeches: Adolf Hitler. He pinpointed culprits for Germany's woes: the November criminals who signed the armistice, liberals and socialists who signed Versailles, communists threatening revolution, and Jewish bankers plotting destruction. The Nazi and Communist parties clashed violently. Hitler claimed he alone could bring order and end the Red Plague. A powerful orator, he capitalized on discontent. His National Socialist German Workers' Party, Nazis, grew explosively. In September 1930, they won 107 seats in the Reichstag, nearly tenfold increase. By 1932, they claimed 230 seats, becoming the largest party. In the 1932 election, Hitler ran for president, losing to war hero Paul von Hindenburg, but his rise forced Hindenburg to appoint him chancellor on January 30, 1933, head of the German government. Just 1 month later, a fire started in the Reichstag by a young Dutch communist. Hitler used it to paint all communists as enemies. Via Article 48, the Reichstag fire decree abolished civil liberties like freedom of speech and press. He created the Gestapo secret police to suppress opposition, tripled the military size, violating Versailles, banned rival parties, killed opponents, and prohibited Jews from working, voting, or public spaces. After Hindenburg's death in 1934, Hitler declared himself Führer, absolute dictator. Nazi ambitions and early violations. Hitler envisioned a world dominated by 4 superpowers: Germany over mainland Europe, Britain maintaining its empire, Japan, the Aryans of the East, in Southeast Asia and the Pacific, and America in the Western Hemisphere. Opposing Versailles fueled Nazi support. Hitler promised to restore Germany's place. Objectives were clear: economic autarky, or self-sufficiency, to produce goods without heavy import reliance, vital against British blockades like in World War I. Germany needed Lebensraum, or living space, in the east, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Ukraine, and Soviet agricultural regions. This new Reich would be racially pure, Aryan only, free of Slavs and Jews who must leave or be eliminated. Germany would crusade against Judeo-Bolshevism, embodied by the Soviet Union, a war Hitler deemed inevitable. The international system faltered without British and U.S. support. Isolationist America pursued non-interventionism. France alone enforced Versailles, but couldn't or wouldn't. The 1932 to 1934 Geneva Disarmament Conference previewed Hitler's tactics. He demanded Germany disarm if France, Britain, Japan, and the U.S. did the same, an offer he knew would be rejected. He spun it as proof the conference subjugated Germany, withdrawing from the League and conference in 1933 to popular acclaim. In September 1930, Germany signed a non-aggression pact with Poland, peeling an ally from France and freeing Germany's east. In March 1935, Germany revealed the Luftwaffe, breaking Versailles. Britain, France, and Poland have air forces. Germany needs defense. A week later, conscription built an army of 500,000. The League protested. No action followed. In June 1935, Britain signed the Anglo-German Naval Agreement, allowing Germany 35% of British surface tonnage and 60% submarines, abandoning Versailles and signaling appeasement. In March 1936, German troops entered the demilitarized Rhineland. The League did nothing. Versailles was dead. France built the Maginot Line along its border, but it stopped at the Ardennes, unprepared for Blitzkrieg. Stalin threatened, joined the League, and allied with Czechoslovakia, but only if Western allies aided first, to avoid redirecting German aggression eastward. Anschluss, Munich, and the road to war. Hitler sought to unify German-speaking nations, especially Austria, banned by Versailles. Austrian President Schuschnigg resigned, knowing no help from Italy, France, or Britain. German troops marched into Austria unopposed in 1938, Anschluss under self-determination. Emboldened, Hitler eyed Czechoslovakia's Sudetenland, 3 million German speakers. The Czechs hoped for Anglo-French aid, but Neville Chamberlain sought peace. After 2 trips, Hitler met Chamberlain, France, and Italy at Munich on September 30, 1938. They agreed Germany gets Sudetenland if Hitler stops there. Soviets and Czechs excluded. Czechoslovakia surrendered. Chamberlain returned, waving a peace treaty signed by Hitler, proclaiming peace in our time to cheering crowds. But Hitler saw weakness. Churchill warned, "You were given the choice between war and dishonor. You chose dishonor, and you will have war." 6 months later, March 15, 1939, Germany occupied all Czechoslovakia. Britain and France guaranteed Poland's safety, began rearming, and installed secret radar. On August 23, 1939, Germany and the Soviets signed a non-aggression pact, a shocking to the world. It freed Hitler from a 2-front war for Poland, bought Stalin time to rebuild his purged Red Army. Blitzkrieg unleashed. Poland falls. War loomed. Blitzkrieg, or lightning war, revolutionized combat. Tanks smashed defenses, encircled foes, supported by Luftwaffe close air support, avoiding World War I's attrition. On September 1, 1939, 52 German divisions, 1+ million men, invaded Poland via north and south. Britain issued an ultimatum, ignored. Britain, France, Australia, and New Zealand declared war. Chamberlain announced it on radio. 5 armored divisions, 300 tanks each, 4 motorized infantry, Luftwaffe cover, overwhelmed Poland's 1.3 million, outdated gear, few tanks. Polish cavalry charged panzers, 15-1 disadvantage. Warsaw reached by September 8th. Stalin invaded east, reclaiming pre-1917 Russian land. Poland fought 2 fronts, capitulated, ceasefire September 27th, lost surrender October 6th. Losses 70,000 dead versus Germany, 50,000 versus USSR, 133,000 wounded, 700,000 German prisoners, 300,000 Soviet. 150,000 Poles escaped, many to Britain. Hitler's third annexation succeeded. The West did nothing. Phony war followed, no Allied action. Winter War and Norway. 3 months later, Stalin feared Finnish German influence, Leningrad 20 miles from border. Demanding Karelian Isthmus territory refused by the Finns. Soviets invaded November 30, 1939, 50-1 manpower, superior equipment. Finns in white camo fought tenaciously 2+ months, inflicting heavy damage. Soviets adapted and won by March 1940 Moscow Peace Treaty. Finland ceded 11% land. The Red Army's poor showing emboldened Hitler for Barbarossa, confirmed west of Soviet weakness. April 1940, Germany invaded Norway, 33 divisions, to secure Swedish iron ore, thwart Allied blockade. Oslo to Narvik fell. British failure led to Chamberlain's resignation May 10th. Winston Churchill succeeded, long a critic of appeasement. Fall of France, miracle at Dunkirk. Same day, Germany attacked France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. French manned the Maginot, Allies' Belgium border, neutrality delayed entry. Dawn 1,000+ Luftwaffe planes destroyed Allied airfields on the ground, air superiority secured. Luxembourg fell in hours. Belgium admitted Allies too late. 3 army groups, B. Netherlands, then Belgium, pinned allies. C. Maginot Distraction. A. 750,000 Ardennes breach, 41,000 vehicles. Crossed the Meuse, captured Sedan May 15th, encircled allies in Belgium. Allies retreated to Dunkirk. Churchill launched Operation Dynamo May 26th, evacuate 400,000. Luftwaffe bombed beaches and ships. RAF countered. Shallow waters needed little ships. Civilian boats ferried troops. By June 4th, 338,000 evacuated. A miracle, but heavy gear lost. France surrendered weeks later after Mussolini declared war. The Germans entered Paris. In 6 weeks, May 10th to June, Germany conquered Western Europe. What took 4 years in World War I took 35 days. Battle of Britain, the few. Britain stood alone. English Channel barrier. U.S. distant. Hitler offered peace, but Churchill's "we shall fight on the beaches" refused. Operation Sea Lion, planned for August 15th, rushed. Britain fortified, defenses, home guard. Royal Navy outnumbered Kriegsmarine. Luftwaffe 2,600 planes versus RAF 700 fighters. Spitfires, Hurricanes versus Bf 109s. Radar 120-mile range fed Fighter Command Hugh Dowding. July 10th, Channel shipping attacks. Goering targeted RAF airfields and factories. Heavy bombing, but radar warned. Dogfights raged. August 15th, largest raid. 90 German losses versus 42 British. RAF exhausted, but August 24th, German bombers hit London accidentally. RAF retaliated on Berlin. Furious, Hitler shifted to city bombing. September 7th, relieved RAF bases. September 15th, Battle of Britain Day. RAF downed 61 versus 31 losses. Luftwaffe failed air superiority. Sea Lion postponed September 17th. Churchill, never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. Blitz followed. 8 months, London 57 nights, 2 million homes destroyed, 40,000 civilians killed, 87,000 injured. Britain endured. Operation Barbarossa, turning east. Invasion impossible, Hitler eyed east. Operation Barbarossa, the largest in history. Communism hated, resources for the master race. Stalin's purges weakened the Red Army. April 1941, Balkans secured. Yugoslavia and Greece fell fast. June 22nd, 3:15 a.m., 4 million men, 3,000 planes, 3 army groups versus the Soviets, 2 million front, millions reserve, 20,000 tanks versus 6,000. North, Baltic to Leningrad, center, Moscow, south, Ukraine. Luftwaffe struck. Panzers advanced 50 miles day 2. By Smolensk, July, Moscow neared, but rest lagged, horse-drawn. Hitler diverted center-south to Kiev, disaster. Soviets mobilized 16 million, T-34 tanks superior. Leningrad besieged, 1 million dead by 1944. Moscow offensive, September 20th, halted by weather 50 miles out. Brutal winter froze Germans. December 5th, Siberian reinforcements counterattacked. Lines held 4 months. South, Stalingrad street fighting. Soviets flanked, 1 million men, 900 tanks, 100,000 Germans captured, 5,000 returned, 300,000 losses each side. Tide turned. Soviets reclaimed at Kursk. Germany lost offensive edge. Pearl Harbor, global war. November 26th, Japanese fleet sailed for Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Europe's war became the deadliest global conflict in history.